It's March 19th, 2018, and it's time to review 5 of the most outrageous, infuriating, or just plain baffling things that have happened lately. It's your Facepalm 5. Let's count them down. Number 1. Congressional Republicans end their Trump-Russia investigation. Good news, everyone. The Republicans in control of the House Intelligence Committee have concluded their investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. And guess what? Nothing happened. Everything's fine. Move along. Move along. A week ago, the committee released a statement declaring that it had found, quote, no evidence of collusion, coordination, or conspiracy between the Trump campaign and the Russians. And more than that, the statement expressed, quote, concurrence with the intelligence community assessment's judgments, except with respect to Putin's supposed preference for candidate Trump. Yeah, because obviously the most far-fetched bit of this entire business has been the suggestion that Vladimir Putin would rather have Donald Trump as president of the United States than Hillary Clinton. Why would anyone think that? Anyway, this may come as a shock to some of you, but the Democrats are saying that the Republicans didn't do the best job with this investigation. Adam Schiff, the leading Democrat on the committee, says the Republicans ended the investigation before interviewing numerous important witnesses, including Michael Flynn, Paul Manafort, and George Papadopoulos, who have all become key figures in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation. Schiff released a statement saying the Republican majority, quote, has placed the interests of protecting the president over protecting the country, adding in a tweet that, quote, if Russians have leverage over the president, GOP has decided it would rather not know. Obviously, the GOP is willing to bend over backwards to protect a lying, bigoted, easily manipulated, dangerously incompetent dipshit with a history of sexual assault, but if it turns out that said dipshit has also been compromised by a foreign government, that might reflect poorly on the whole party. Number 2, pro-gun groups continue attacking Parkland shooting survivors and teenagers in general. As I said in the previous episode of this series, some of the leading voices in the fight for gun control here in the United States belong to high school students who survived the shooting in Parkland, Florida last month. Last week, the Parkland survivors were joined by student activists all across the country as thousands walked out of their classes to protest gun violence and demand that legislators take action to reform the nation's gun laws. It was the largest student demonstration in the United States since the Vietnam War. It reminds me of a verse from the Old Testament, Isaiah describing the day of the Lord. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf, and the young lion, and the fatling all together, and a child shall lead them. And how does the rest of it go? And then shall the agents of the NRA appear on televisions all across the land and say, shut up, cocky little kid. What do a bunch of teenagers whose classmates were shot to death know about gun violence? The usual bunch of shameless asshole gun apologists reacted to the protests, claiming the students were being used as political pawns of gun control advocates, suggesting, as NRA spokesperson Dana Lash did, that kids who participated in the walkout, which was explicitly organized to protest elected officials not doing anything about gun control, don't necessarily support gun control, and demanding to know why we should care what a bunch of kids think about gun laws when they aren't even old enough to own guns. And that right there is a perfect example of why American gun laws are so pathetically ineffectual. They're written to protect the interests of the people who want to buy and sell guns, not the people who are getting shot by them. Number 3, WWE draws outrage from fans and sponsors for honoring a not-so-fabulous legend. I used to talk about pro wrestling on this channel a lot more than I have been recently, and there's a very good reason for that. After the election of Donald Trump, who was and is supported by WWE Chairman and CEO Vince McMahon, I canceled my subscription to the WWE Network and stopped watching WWE programming. I still watch wrestling when I get the chance, but I watch New Japan or American independent stuff. WWE, the company that is synonymous with pro wrestling in the minds of many people, is an entity I choose to no longer support. And just last week, I was reminded yet again that I made the right choice. WWE announced a women's battle royal was being added to the card of WrestleMania, and it was going to be called the Fabulous Moolah Memorial Battle Royal. For you non-wrestling fans, a battle royal is a match where a bunch of wrestlers are in the ring at the same time and they're all fighting to throw each other over the top rope to the floor. The last wrestler in the ring after everyone else has been eliminated wins the battle royal. Naming this particular battle royal after the Fabulous Moolah was a problem for a lot of people because Moolah, whose real name was Lillian Ellison and who was legitimately one of the most famous and successful woman wrestlers in history, was a horrible person. Specifically, Moolah was known to demand a cut of the earnings of women she trained as wrestlers, a cut so large that to many people it amounted to wage theft. She was also known to hire out her trainees to perform sexual favors for men in the wrestling business. Moolah's exploitation of the women under her influence even extended to her own daughter, Mary, who also became a wrestler, and who Moolah forced to wrestle while still recovering from an appendectomy when Mary was only 15. Fans complained on social media, but nobody really expected anything to happen. Luckily, some of those fans expressed their dissatisfaction not only to WWE, but also to the parent company of Snickers, which is a major sponsor of the upcoming WrestleMania. Within a few hours of Snickers making it known that it was none too happy about the situation, WWE announced that the Battle Royal was no longer named after the Fabulous Moolah. Isn't it amazing how conscientious they get when you start to fuck with their money? Number 4, Secretary of Education reminds everyone she's dangerously unqualified. Remember last year when Trump's Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, testified at her confirmation hearing and revealed that she knows less than nothing about a whole bunch of important education-related subjects? Well, she must have had so much fun that she decided to do it again, only this time on 60 Minutes. During an interview with Leslie Stahl that aired on March 11th, DeVos tried and failed to defend her plans to prioritize funding charter schools over traditional public schools. When Stahl pointed out that students in DeVos's home state of Michigan are not doing well, DeVos countered with, "Well, there are certainly lots of pockets where the students are doing well." When Stahl questioned her about reports that she is about to roll back Obama-era guidelines intended to address racial inequalities in how students are disciplined, DeVos dodged that question, saying only that her department is studying the problem and committed to giving more students the opportunity to learn in a safe and nurturing environment. Stahl also asked about sexual assault, seeing as how last year DeVos rescinded guidelines for schools investigating sexual assault. When Stahl asked if DeVos was attempting to suggest that false allegations of assault were just as pressing a problem as assault, DeVos answered, "One sexual assault is one too many, and one falsely accused individual is one too many." When Stahl asked point blank if DeVos thought there were as many false accusations as legitimate sexual assaults, DeVos said she didn't know, which makes her either a liar or an ignoramus. While we don't have exact figures, research indicates that only between 2 and 10% of sexual assault reports are false. That means that between 90 and 98% of people who report having been sexually assaulted are telling the truth. Despite that, according to a review by the Huffington Post conducted in 2014, less than 1/3 of students who are found responsible for committing a sexual assault by their school are expelled, and less than half are even suspended. So no, false accusations are not as serious a problem as sexual assault. It's not even close. And given how difficult it can be for survivors to report their assaults and how rare it is for their attackers to actually be held accountable, for the Secretary of Goddamn Education to dither and deflect and equivocate in response to a simple question about campus sexual assault is unforgivable. And speaking of unforgivable, it's now time for the segment devoted to some of the other things Donald Trump has done recently to disgrace the presidency and embarrass and or endanger the United States and the rest of the world. It's number 5, the further misadventures of Lord Dampnut. Please keep in mind, as always, the following is not a complete list. He fired his Secretary of State Rex Tillerson via Twitter 3 hours before calling Tillerson to let him know personally that his services were no longer required. And speaking of the State Department, last week, top congressional Democrats informed the White House they had evidence that top administration officials have been terminating or reassigning longtime State Department employees who have been deemed disloyal to the president. Trump bragged to attendees at a fundraiser that he had insisted to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that the U.S. had a trade deficit with Canada, even though at the time he had no idea if that was true or not. Turns out it wasn't true, by the way. According to the most recent statistics, the U.S. actually has a trade surplus of over $12 billion with Canada. He appointed Larry Kudlow, a columnist and former CNBC host, most famous for always being wrong about the economy, to lead the National Economic Council, and he visited San Diego to inspect prototypes of the border wall that he still has no funding to actually build, where he said, quote, "The larger it is, the better it is, because it's very hard to get over the top. It's really a deterrent from getting over the top. Who would think? Who would think? But getting over the top is easy. These are like professional mountain climbers. They can't climb some of these walls. Some of them they can, and those are the walls we aren't using. And even the walls they have now, they are not holding up. And they're small, but they're really great compared to what they had before. Stopped about 95%. Excuse me, I have to go wash my brain. That's 5. Speak out, act out, resist. Look after each other. It hurts. It hurts. Hey folks, hope you got something out of this one. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and also please consider helping me to keep making videos like this by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron of this channel for as little as $1 a month. But if you pledge $5 a month or more, you can take advantage of some special perks built into the campaign, including a shout out at the end of the Facepalm 5 for everybody who pledges $5 a month or higher. Now, I didn't get any new $5 or higher per month patrons since the last episode of the Facepalm 5, but there you go. The offer is always open. Anyone who pledges $5 a month or higher gets a shout out at the end of the Facepalm 5. So thank you to everyone for your support in whatever form it takes, whether you're a patron or not. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you next time.